right, hello wine drinking people. Wrapping up another great year of wine tastings here at the store. You know, we kind of got a little away from us. This is what I drank yesterday. Next year we're going to try to keep on top of it a little better, upgrade our software, do whatever we need to do to try to expedite getting these reviews out to people, because what I drank yesterday became what I drank last week, became what I drank last month, and what I drank 2 months ago. So actually this was last night. We're doing the filming anyways. I don't know how long it'll take us to wrap up the reviews and the editing work on it, but you know, it's always best to do these when these experiences are fresh in your mind. And to think we could put these 12 outstanding wines from Neil Empson's portfolio on the table and take until the day of the event to sell out, can't believe it, especially when you look at the great producers on the table. And we're serving Brunello, we're serving Barolo, and we served you a meal. And, you know, we had a great education from Renato Spanu, who's been working for Neil Empson for 12 years. Dennis Webb stopped in. He had been working for Neil Empson for 18 years in this market. You don't see suppliers that have been with one company for that length of time really very often. So, you know, Neil's got to be a great guy to work for. And actually, we had him and his wife in for winemaker dinner years ago at East City Grill. It was a fantastic evening. We had like 8 producers in, and that is, to me, the sign of a great importer, man. When you're friends with all your producers, not only do you do business with them, but they consider you good friends. And that's what it seemed like with Neil and his producers. And, you know, hey, Renato's got his own wine, and guess who represents it? You got it, Neil Empson. And that's the first thing we started out with on this evening, the Giancarlo Vermentino di Gallura. And this is from the island of Sardinia, where, you know, the greatest Vermentino comes from in Italy. And a few good, interesting points that Renato pointed out. You know, Pinot Grigio, the most popular Italian white in this country, but you go to Italy, it's Vermentino, and Vermentino is quickly becoming very popular here too. It's being grown in Tuscany today, and well, several areas also in Italy, but the best examples come from this area, Gallura, the vein of San Leonardo, and really pretty bouquet in this wine. Some lemon, citrus, orange blossom, Asian pear fruit. Really nice and lively on the tongue, a little spritz, almost tonic-like, and really nice freshness to this wine. Just leaves the tongue salivating for food, something all great Italian white should do. And very reasonably priced here at $22.50. We're going to offer it on sale for under 20 bucks. What the hell? We're going nuts here at the Wine Watch. Okay, everything that we offer at our tastings, we offer you at our case price from bottle one, so you get to try. You need to make it here for the tasting, which we did have 15 people here. It did sell out. Took us to the last moment. Like I said, but these were incredible wines. The 2010, an incredible vintage, both in the Piedmont and in Tuscany. And our first flight was a flight of everyday wines. Barbera, you know, some people tell you Dolcetto is the entry-level wine in the Piedmont. I'm sorry, it starts for me with Barbera. You can get just as good a Barbera for the price of your entry-level Dolcetto. I'm sorry, twice as good. The entry-level Barbera is just, to me, you know, you can blow away anything made with Dolcetto. Anyways, I rant and rave. The 3 producers we had here, Carome, Marcarini, and Conterno, very different in terms of their production styles. Marcarini, a very old school producer. You notice that with the wines, lighter in color. Carome, they do kind of use some new oak, but tonneau, larger oak, so they don't use the barriques. And then Conterno Fantino, you really notice the barrique in these wines and the spice from the oak. And that's pretty much, you know, what a lot of people think add complexity to wine. And, you know, I like the freshness and I like the fruitiness of the Marcarini, but I have to say the Conterno Fantino Barbera really had the most going on for me. Had that lovely spice. And Barbera doesn't have tannins, and I think you need a little bit of tannins in all wines to balance them out. The Carome had a little bit of spice and tannins, but the Conterno Fantino had the most structure. An excellent bottle of Barbera. The Rosso di Montalcinos, Costanti, Fellini, and Lissini, 3 great producers. And again, 3 different producers in terms of stylistically, but, you know, all very good wines. Costanti had this lovely wild strawberry fruit, kind of red licorice spice, porcini mushrooms. These Rossos all use the same vineyard sites, the same grapes that go into the Brunello di Montalcino in some vintages. It's just a selection. So these 3 producers make Rosso at the highest level. Maybe a little bit, you know, on the expensive side for Rosso, $30, but, you know, for a great bottle of 100% Sangiovese, you will do no better than Rosso di Montalcino. The Fellini, I think for me, had the longest finish here, but I went back and forth with these 3 wines and ended up edging out the Lissini, but all 3 of them excellent. This Lissini just seemed to have a little more length on the finish and a little more complexity to it, but really nice bottles of Rosso. 2010, a classic vintage in Montalcino. The 2007 Brunello flights, actually we showed that before the Barolos. It wasn't listed that way, but I don't know what I was thinking when I listed Barolo before Brunello. Barolo is the biggest of all wines in Italy. Brunello, you know, a lot of people compare Brunello to Pinot Noir. When you look at the structure of the wines, they are lighter. It has more tannin than Pinot Noir, but it's kind of ironic that the estates in the Piedmont are more like Burgundy. Tuscany is more like Bordeaux to me. You know, you look at the large estates, a lot of very wealthy people, prominent people owning them, and the Piedmont, you go to shake hands with people there, and they get dirt under their fingers. So they're farmers, and you know, to me, the wines kind of ironically resemble the other, you know, regions, but I think Brunello, one of the greatest, one of the most longest-lived wines. The Fellini, the Lacini, and the Cassanti from '07, an outstanding vintage, a trio of most excellent wines. And, you know, again, it was a hard time for me to pick a favorite. It went down to the wire, but the Fellini kind of won out in the end. They do use some new tonneau in this on this wine, and you know, to me, like I said, I like a little bit of new oak. It adds some spice to it. I may not be a complete, you know, old world, old school enthusiast, but I do like the old school wines as well. All three of these wines from exceptional vintage. So for me, the Barolo flight kind of lost out because '08's not nearly as good of a vintage, I think, in the Piedmont as '07 was in Tuscany. So these '08s, although three great producers make great wines every year. The Marcarini Barolo, the Carome, and the Quinterno Fontina. These are all Crus, Brunate, Ceretta, and then Sori Ginestra. And Sori means south-facing slope. And all Barolo and Barbaresco vineyards, to be classified with DOC and DOCG, have to be facing south, either southeast, southwest, but at least some south exposure. They cannot be flat. They cannot be facing north. So that's one of the requirements of the DOCG in that area. And Carome, like I said before, kind of in between. They use a little bit of oak. And then the Quinterno Fantino, you can really notice the oak spice in this wine. And, you know, to me, that was one of the wines of the night. But in the end, I had to give it to the Fellini Brunello di Montalcino. Quinterno, you notice those exotic spices, the floral notes, the darker color in this wine, truffle, dark cocoa, exotic spice, sweet berry fruits, and a long finish, a bit tannic right now. That Barolo always needs a little bit of time. The Carome had some nice vanilla spice, some rose petal, some ripe cherry fruit, smooth and silky texture, and really drinkable right now. But you could just tell this wine could go another 10 years in your cellar. And the Marcarini, the lightest and the most elegant of these three. But hey, this is still Barolo, still had a lot of tannins. Young Barolo with that lovely exotic spice and floral notes, but three excellent wines. But to me, like I said, the Brunello di Montalcino, that vintage, edged it out for me, and it gave the Fellini as the wine of the night. But a lot of killer juice. Thank you very much, Renato. That's what we had to drink at our Neil Empson tasting a night ago. I'm your host, Andrew Lamposoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.